Peace, everyone. This is Tierney Cherie from We Charge Colonialism, also the African Esquire TV channel. We're here today to bring out to the public WCC's new platform and program that really is specific to African people in the diaspora who are considering making the move home. So before we get started on that, I want my two comrades who I think are perfect people to have this discussion with. We have Jamal and we have Frank. They're both perfect to have this discussion because not only are they inside of We Charge Colonialism, but both of them have unique experiences as far as repatriation issues. So I'm going to ask each of you to just introduce yourself if you can. Jamal, you're muted.
He can't hear you.
Okay, peace everybody. How's everybody doing? My name is Jamal. I'm the chair of the public relations team at WCC. I'm also the chair of the social media team. And right now I am currently in Kenya. I've been living here for about almost 5 months now. So while I was told about this discussion, I definitely wanted to jump on it and give my information about my move.
And also we have Frank. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Peace, everyone. This is Frank Maubad. I'm member of We Charge Colonialism, and I'm also the chair for the Political Action Committee.
So, as many of you might see, inside of the title, it says Revolutionary Repatriation Program and Platform. So first, we want to bring up the conversation that is going on for many African people around the diaspora and who have considered going home. And I personally believe that's the best option for all people. But there are a lot of concerns that we should be aware of for those of us who do want to go home. Are we going to just go home to take advantage of the situation as it exists inside of Africa? Because we know that Africa has been sent into chaos because of colonialism. We know, for example, that not only has colonialism existed in the past, but it still exists in the current. And because of that, there's relationships, exploitative relationships that exist between people who are indigenous to the region and people who decide to integrate into the capitalist system. So that brings a lot of problems for those of us who go home, because I think you have to make a decision. Are you there for the collective upliftment of your people, or are you there to essentially continue the system and not challenge the system? Some of us think that it's revolutionary just to go back to Africa in itself. I would tell you it's not revolutionary just to go back to Africa in itself, because we should know that the war does not stop soon as you leave America's shores. There's a war still going on. Yes, you may have more peace of mind for the meantime while you go back to the continent, but understand that the conditions are worsening, and as the conditions worsen, that there's going to be a decision that has to be made by you. Are you going to live comfortably inside of a place where our people are suffering in mass numbers, or are you going to try to organize, as our ancestors have told us to do, to eradicate the situation as it exists? So to begin the conversation, I want to actually play a clip. And let me say, first of all, I understand this is probably going to be a controversial stance that we're taking, and because of that, because a lot of that I think is because so much of the discourse has just been everyone go back to Africa, invest, go back to Africa, without people necessarily having a political agenda attached to that. I think this video, which is a video of Akon, is a good demonstration of that. So some of you might see this video and think it's inspirational, but we hope that you will see or recognize some of the issues that are presented because of the mentality of certain African people about how we're just going to go back to Africa and basically almost like reconquer it for African people this time. So I'm going to play this video, and I'm going to have to share my screen. One second, it is muted.
Best to Africa. I know we touched on it a little bit earlier. I'd like to go a little bit more deeper into that. Why should we invest in Africa? I know why we should invest in Africa, but I would like for us to tell the masses, the whole world?
Well, this is what I can tell you. I know a lot of times we have the tendency to blame the white man for everything that's going wrong, right? And
white man is fucked up. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm just playing.
No, I mean that's how that's the majority of African Americans in America feel. You know, you're not saying nothing that everybody don't feel. That don't necessarily mean it's true.
Right.
But with the circumstances that surround us, that's why we believe that way. You know, so at the end of the day, it was like if you are in a position in life where you feel like you don't own your own content, you don't own anything, and they should be investing in us. This is the opportunity now to be able to own that in which we're complaining about. Because in Africa, it's a clean slate. You can build that empire there. You can build that infrastructure there. And you already got the information. You're already educated on how to do it because we've done it here and made billions of dollars for corporations all day. Africa is the only place in the world where black people can go and build Fortune 500 companies from scratch within 5 years.
It'd be like China, easily.
No, seriously. And this took them hundreds of years to build. You can build it now within 5 years. China took that same, mind state 25 years ago. China was no different from Africa 25 years ago. Go to China now. Look at Dubai, the Middle East. They just started 15 years ago and started building that same
I'm kind of me. Just want to be 100%. I understand what you exactly mean. So you're saying that Africa right now. So how could Africa be the new China? How can we say that? So
black people,
for all our black people, yes.
Go back to Africa.
Okay.
Whatever you're doing here, do it there. Whether
So,
it's real estate, entertainment, education,
sneaker company,
whatever,
clothing line,
whatever.
Start it there.
Do it there. Don't even start it. Do it there. It's gonna grow out of there anyway. But Africa's big enough you won't ever have to need no other country anyway. Think about it. Everything you do is in America.
Out of Africa.
No, you don't.
Well, it depends on you.
Africa's the second biggest continent in the world.
Africa.
It's over 1 billion people.
Who's the biggest continent? Europe. Who's the biggest continent?
Well, it's continent and country.
Asia is the biggest continent.
Asia. That's
Then
China,
Africa.
Korea.
It's all them
Russia,
and
India.
India, all them put together though.
Right.
That makes Asia.
Right.
And it's not that much bigger than Africa. And Africa is the second biggest continent.
With more natural resources as well.
With all the natural resources.
Right.
That's the difference. So we literally got a pot of gold and nobody even going for it.
Exploited by outsiders.
How do we start this? How do we start to say, you know what? Let's invest back in the motherland.
I think the key is, first of all, you got to release the fear because a lot of, African Americans are afraid to go to Africa.
No, because I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie.
Which I mean, naturally,
I was offered so many shows to Africa. I'll be honest. And then they told me I could get shots. And I was like, And I've never actually been to Africa because I didn't want to get the shots. I didn't know they injecting shit in me. Like I was scared. This is back in the day.
That's why I said you got to release the fear.
Gotta release the
fear. You have to because first of all, only white people need shots to go to Africa. Black people don't need no shots to go to Africa.
But why is that even a rumor that you need shots to go to Africa?
I mean, it's fear. The same way they told you AIDS started in Africa.
Wow.
You can die from malaria. They're telling you all this stuff. None of that stuff is real.
Wow.
Okay, so I think we got the gist of the point. Let me stop sharing my screen. So Frank and Jamal, when you hear some of the points that Akon was making, what are your takeaways? Jamal being an African who was born in America but has repatriated to Kenya. Frank being an African who was born on the continent. He was born in Liberia. He's currently in America but plans on repatriating as soon as possible. So what are your thoughts on
that? My thoughts are, I used to be in a mindset that everybody from the U.S., every black person from the U.S., should visit Africa at least one time in their lifetime. But after I've been to Africa several times before I made the move, one day I realized Africa is not for everybody because what I have seen with my own two eyes is, you see so-called African Americans, they come over here and they expect the red carpet to be rolled out. They treat the native people as if they were the colonizer themselves. And there's a lot of misconception about the progress of Africa. even though a lot of the stereotypes are not true as far as the junk goes, as far as the huts and things like that, we also don't want to be fooled by the illusion of inclusion, because a lot of times we see these skyscrapers, we see these institutions, and we think Africa is doing successful. But what we don't realize is a lot of the corporations here are run by outsiders. I was just in Dianis. Those who are familiar with Kenya, Dianis is next to the Indian Ocean. It's on the coast. And I was just there. I spent about 4 or 5 days there. And I was on the beach by a ton of resorts. And on these resorts, I say about 75% of the people on the resorts, the luxury resorts, with either white people or Indians. Only about 25% of the people made up are native Kenyan people, even though this country is about 99.9% black. When it comes to tourism, they represent people who doesn't look like you and I. But if you go down the street in Dianis, or you go down the street in Mombasa, you start leaving these tourist areas, you find the slums, you find the ghettos, you find people who only make about 100 shillings a day. And those who are not familiar with the Kenya currency, 100 shillings is about equivalent of $1 US a day. And these people will go out their way, walk 2 hours to work just to make $1. You know what I'm saying? So how we got these luxury resorts, how we got these luxury hotels, even at the supermarkets here, they got popular supermarkets similar to Walmart, like Carrefour or Natus. And when you do your research, I'm not sure about Natus, but I know Carrefour is owned by the French. It's like, so a lot of times when we see malls, these supermarkets, these restaurant chains, we think in Africa is making progress, but we don't know who it's being owned by. So this is why socialism is very important, because right now when we take the lead for oppression and just assume that capitalism is the solution, we end up with the rich class Africans and the lower class Africans similar to the status of us in the U.S.
I think you said something, a few things very important. One is that if you don't have an agenda to break the class system, so if you understand the class system as it exists in Africa, you have a small amount of people who, the bourgeoisie, whatever you want to call them, the rich, the luxurious people, whatever, the small percent of people are the ones who benefit from the system that are African. And then you have the masses who are suffering. That's a very intense class system domestically, but then you have the added layer that even the small percent that are rich, they are many times complicit with the outsiders who basically own up the continent. So we have a situation where the class system is intact, and if you don't go back to the motherland with a plan or an intention to disrupt that class system, you really are just playing into it. Then the other thing that I wanted to bring up that you said that we associate these big buildings as something positive. And I've always cringed at when people who want to show Africa in a positive light. I understand that we've been shown consistently images of the continent being nothing, not having civilization. We know that was a lie from the white man, obviously. But because of that, we're almost like on this mission to prove otherwise. We have to prove that Africa is just like the West, is just like America. It's very developed and all these things. If you think about that idea, you're trying to obtain a standard set by people who did not obtain that standard righteously. America, Europe, all these places would not have these big skyscrapers without having enslaved Africans, without having instituted colonialism. Like, these are things that they got quickly because of their ability to put that program into place. So for you Africans, what is your plan to reach that without exploiting your brothers or sisters? I also would say that this idea of skyscrapers being development while your healthcare infrastructure is in shambles, while your education is in shambles, you know, and that's one thing that drives me nuts is when I hear this development talk, it's more so about roads, it's about having buildings, it's about having, you know, all these nice fancy things. But what are you saying about the conditions of the people? How do you develop a country without developing the people? And to me, people are a more important commodity than land infrastructure. So, Frank, what are your thoughts?
First, before I can start, let me start with a quote from Coming to Rekama, where he says, people make you thinking that slavery was legal. So, in a sense, I says that people that think that slavery was legal, people that think that colonialism was legal, and have no remorse of the brutal behavior of those kind of a system, those people will not in any way necessary help you to recover because they feel that it was legal. So how are they going to help you recover from being traumatized or intimidated or in any way dehumanized? Again, let me go with another quote to say from Dr. Africa, how do you call it? Dr. Arikana, where she says, the situation of Africa, I'm just going to quote, I'm just going to paraphrase, let's say, the situation of Africa or somebody failures is another person's success. And that is exactly, if the imperialists, if the Western world, if Europe or even America and Allah feel that the failures of African people, the failures of the African continent is their success, under no circumstances, they're going to help us to empower us. Because if they feel that our failure is their success, how are they going to empower us to become empowered and to become self-determined people or a self-determined continent? Because that will also mean that it is their failures. So our uprising to success, it is also going to be their failure. So it's like the equilibrium going to turn on the other side now, going downward towards them. So it's going to be their failures. Now, here is my point I want to bring out here. The same people that come with a narrative and says Africa is bad, Africa is where you find all the boogeyman, or the illness, or the sickness. But the reality here is, you know, or we know, that those sickness they are talking about that is in Africa, they created it and they took it dead for reason best known to them. So they use that also as a propaganda to come and make the Africans and brothers and sisters in the diaspora fearful or fear Africa and not to go there. And that is what Akon was talking about. And let us also know that one of their ancestors, Jacob Hoover, also said the greatest threat to the Western world, the greatest threat to America, the greatest threat to the white supremacy, the greatest threat to their establishment is Negro unity. Is the coming together of African people. Is the empowerment of the African continent. Is the total liberation of the African continent. So if someone can feel in that direction or in a sense of direction that somebody freedom is there or is a threat to them, under no circumstances they help you gain your freedom. Now, if we know all of these, right, why should we continue making business with such people? Another question here again is, This says to all that you have to take vaccine, you have to do it. And I will tell you this for now. Not all those white people that go to Africa take vaccine. But again, they use that as a boogeyman to make us scared not to go there. The reason here again is that they know that if we African in the diaspora leave from here and go to Africa, we are going to know the true reality of Africa, and we are going to know what Africa have for her children, that the children in the diaspora need to go and receive. And they know that once the children in the diaspora go on the continent to meet their mother, the African continent, they will have more power and more saying and more voice over the white man on the continent. And what that means is, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask. So I hear what you're saying, but like, what is your critique more so towards the economic landscape of African people, the masses of whom are exploited inside of the current system? How can the diaspora make sure that they don't simply go to Africa to simply create a business and live a happy life, as opposed to go to the motherland to contribute to the everyday African who does not have the resources we have? How do they contribute to their upliftment?
I think that is a very brilliant question. First of all, I would say is to my brothers and sisters in the diaspora here, which of course I'm also part. Look at the economic system you live within the diaspora here. Look at it. It is the same way in Africa we are living it, right? So now, you want to compare the economic system in the diaspora that you live in through that is against you and that of Africa. So in order for any African to leave the diaspora to go to Africa, we have to make them aware that what is going on there. And we have to give them some sort of education. And that education will come through being a true African and identifying yourself as a true African and identifying yourself as the same people on the continent and knowing the true reality that the same people that oppress me, the same people that bring me down, it is the same people that bringing the people on the continent down. So if I'm going there, I am going to get alongside with them to fight the same people so that we can defeat them. And the reality here is you can even go, if you don't even want to do that, let go back, let's do the devil advocate. If you don't want to do that, and you go back on the continent, and you feel that, okay, I just want to go there, I just want to get some business, and make my money and whatever and things. The fact is that in the United States here or in the diaspora here, you can have all your money and whatsoever, but you can have your business and those things. You don't have control over it. At any time, they can come and get it from you. The moment you want to talk about Black people, what does that mean? You don't own nothing. You don't own business. You don't own land. Everything that you own, the moment you want to talk about Black progress, Black empowerment, the system will come and get it from you. So if that same system is in Africa and you get there, how are you going to survive? How are you going to own anything? You're not even going to own land, not even business. And you can be on your own continent, on your own mother continent, and you don't own the land and resources and things. So it is unto us to educate our brothers and sisters when they go down there. They are now going there, even though Akon said, you can have a money and be a 500 Fortune company in 5 years and all of those things. That's his part of business view. But we as revolutionary, because Akon is not a revolutionary, we are revolutionary, and he's doing a good thing too. He's encouraging our brothers and sisters. But yet then too, it is unto us to tell those people who have the Fortune $500 to go into on the African continent to create business, to also let them know that it is not as business that you actually going to create. You actually going to create a business and at the same time to liberate Africa. You are not going there to compete with white men, but you are going there to decolonize the attitude of the white men and own the continent along with your people.
For sure. And yeah, I think that was like, to me, like more of the disturbing point is that I actually know like what Akon has done with a lot of that logic. I've criticized him a lot on my YouTube channel, obviously, because of recently he has his Akon City. We've seen that he's going to be participating in the cobalt mining in the Congo, which is going to be really relevant also because I'm supposed to interview, I believe tomorrow, the executive director of Friends of the Congo. So I'm sure he's going to let us know the cost of some of this technology that we have. But cobalt mining, he's also participated in diamond mining in South Africa. And so the question is, are we trying to see a furtherance of what has been taught to us as a way of living, as a way of connecting to other people, or we're trying to disrupt that? And as Frank said, we are revolutionaries. We're not here to keep the system as it is. We're not here to keep the ideas that have been taught to us. We're here to deconstruct them and be very honest. We have to be honest and say that how has the capitalist system affected African people? When you go back to our first encounter with capitalism, that was slavery. Slavery was a capitalist system. Look up the East African, the East Indian Company. That was a capitalist. We were considered a commodity, and then throughout the times, you've only seen it worsen. You see the prison industrial complex. You see how Africa is doing. It's so funny when you hear people say, there's no successful, or there's no success. It's not true, but there's no successful examples of socialism. And it's so funny. What example of capitalism have you seen that African people collectively flourished? There's none. There's no country in Africa that is doing well under the system. So I think it just gives us the onus to be critical and not necessarily just accept things that were taught to us. So Jamal, do you have anything else to add before I go to our statement?
I guess I'll just touch back on, the economic situation, especially here in Kenya. I know different African countries are different, but, there's still a lot of similarities that goes on. People got to realize that these people are really struggling economically. I believe WCC released a report that says I think 85% of the continent only make maybe $5 a day. You know what I'm saying? That's just incredible to me. But me living here in Kenya, I believe it because I could go to downtown Nairobi, or I could go to a lot of these tourist places. But if I go more and more within the city, you can see how the people are really living. You know what I'm saying? The hustle is real. You know what I'm saying? So even if you're middle class here in Nairobi, the middle class people might only make a equivalent of maybe $400 a month. You know what I mean? Some of us make more than that in a day in the U.S. You know what I mean? So we don't realize how much these people are suffering. You know what I'm saying? Economically, and the leaders ain't no help. You know what I mean? Because the corruption, you have to admit, is real. You know what I mean? I have seen it here. I have seen the bribery among the police. I would say it trickled down amongst the people where they trying to get any money out of you by any means necessary. You know what I'm saying? That's how corrupted the economic finances is here in Kenya. So so we have to get to the root of the problem. You know what I mean? Even though a lot of these African nations been independent since the 1960s, because the 1960s was a revolutionary decade, not just in America, but also at the continent. But something has slowed that progress down, because this is why you have the assassination of a lot of our leaders during that time, whether it was Amilcar Cabral or Malcolm X. We just, a lot of our leaders were cut down. Kwame Nkrumah, he stepped down due to a coup. So that wasn't a coincidence. And now you got leadership, the AU today, which is supposed to be an extension of the old AU, but a lot of times it's nowhere near the same as it used to be.
For sure. All right, guys. So I'm going to read. This is on Charge Colonialism's website. And this is where we are really seeing from here on out. This is a platform. It's a little bit of a deviation from where we previously gone. But I think the thing about it is that having observed the conditions of America, I think, you know, all of us have come to a realization that our future in this country is not the rosy picture that the Democrats in Washington would probably paint for us. But instead, you know, we have to ask real questions. What is the goal? Is the goal just to stop getting killed by police? Is the goal to get reparations without actual power? Or is the goal sovereignty? So this is our position on this, and we'll put it out there for you guys, and we'll discuss some more. So I'm actually going to put the link inside of the chat in case anyone wants to follow along. Okay, so revolutionary repatriation platform and program. We charge colonialism as an anti-imperialist, pan-Africanist organization primarily based in the United States, takes the position that African people are faced with two plausible choices for our liberation. One, we return to our mother continent of Africa and fight for self-determination for the African continent. Or two, we stay here and fight for internal self-determination in the United States, which would be a manifestation of the Black nationalism Malcolm X and others advocated for. That is control over the social, political, and economic institutions of our communities. While we support the right of each African person to arrive at whichever decision is most in line with their and their family's interest, as an organization, we take the stance that the first option, that is the option to go back to Africa, is the most viable and truly liberating choice for African people, as American society has proven time and time again that its interests are in direct opposition to the interests of a free and liberated Africa. America without imperialism would be a country driven into chaos by the exercise of sovereignty over land and resources by the so-called third world or the developing countries. What will those Africans who stay do when Africa is free? These are questions we have to ask. That will drastically increase the cost of living in America and in the West. Everything from food to gas to transportation to computers, technology, and cell phones will increase. What will those Africans who stay do when the corporations that employed them, that had in previous times received cheap natural resources from Africa, are now driven out of business as Africans on the continent demand the correct form of payment for any resources that are leaving the African continent? What will those Africans who stay do when Africa chooses to leave the US dollar, the euro, or the CFA franc behind in place of a monetary system like the gold standard that would strengthen Africa while crippling the Western world's economies? This reality can and will present a conflict of interest for Africans who have chosen to remain in what we call the belly of the beast. We also recognize, though, on a practical level, the words of Malcolm X. He said, revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. There is an undying need for all Africans to have a land base. As the United States is a settler colonial state, we recognize that the only group who could rightfully claim a right to the land is the currently occupied indigenous Americans. We therefore turn our eyes to the only land we could ever rightfully identify as that for African people, that is Africa. This is not a so-called Back to Africa campaign. As the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey stated, I have no desire to take all Black people back to Africa. There are Blacks who are no good here and will likewise be no good there. Frankly speaking, we recognize that most repatriation discourse that circulates on the web is contrary to the benefit and interest of the masses of African people. We do not want pseudo-capitalist bloodsuckers going back to Africa, no matter if they're melanated or not. We therefore offer these criticisms of the current movement of individuals who are reclaiming and repatriating to Africa from the diaspora, generally speaking. Diasporans are not concerned about individuals with means buying up the land in Africa while locals are compressed into communities with a high concentration of poverty and with hazardous, overcrowded, dilapidated housing, so long as the buyer of all the land is African, just not European and certainly not Chinese. Diasporans are encouraged to return to Africa for a better standard of living than they enjoy in America. Diasporans are sold dreams of entrepreneurship in Africa. It's the land of opportunity. And they are told they need to go back to Africa to invest. That investment is masqueraded as being a revolutionary act without any articulation for how that business venture does anything to challenge the status quo for Africans. Investment even becomes counter-revolutionary because it's a distraction from what the issues actually are, and it gives a false sense of hope to Africans that the situation is turning around even while it worsens. In all realism, that investment does nothing to eradicate the material conditions of the masses of African people. A very small percent of diasporans have the means to return to Africa for business opportunities. Of those who have the means to return, an even smaller percent have the desire to return to Africa. Are we supposed to believe that a sliver of a percent of Africans in the diaspora starting businesses in a continent of over 1 billion people, 85% of whom live on $5 a day, 40% of whom live on $2 a day, that small fraction of Africans can reverse this economic catastrophe by starting businesses where they employ their brothers and sisters? Utter nonsense. Remember the words of Kwame Ture. The capitalist system doesn't lie some of the time, it lies all of the time. Diasporans are often fooled into believing that the colonial situation has no consequence for them in Africa. We call on diasporans to not be fooled by these false narratives of living a bourgeoisie experience in Africa and living untouched. Many diaspora and continental Africans have already been the victims of petty crimes such as robbery or even serious crimes such as murder by continental Africans who are living with impoverishment that is created by the colonial system. We do not celebrate this, but we wish that this will serve as a warning. Do not find comfort in simply living a middle-class existence off of your retirement or savings while the masses of Africans around you suffer. Consider again the words of the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. When a man is hungry, he is no respecter of persons. A hungry man forgets the look of his father. I do not care how religious a man is or how many Sunday schools he goes to. I do not care how long he can pray. When that man is hungry, he is a dangerous character. Or put simply, hungry men have no respect for law, authority, or human life. Consider Africa's growing population, much of which is made up of the youth. Not only is the African population the fastest growing in the world, but it is expected to increase by 50% over the next 18 years, growing from 1.2 billion people today to 1.8 billion by 2035. The population is then expected to double by 2050. In fact, Africa will account for nearly half of the entire global population's growth over the next 2 decades. We ask the African diaspora to think about the issue this presents and think logically. African business and commerce have not even begun to touch the tip of the iceberg with the poverty our people face today. Now, what do you expect to see with double the amount of poverty and hunger we see today? Please understand, you will see hungry men and hungry women, and they will be no respecter of your society. They will be no respecter of how many years you put in to receive Social Security checks. There'll be no respecter of your 401k. There'll be no respecter of your stocks and investments, no respecter of how long you pillaged and saved to have the money you have. And understandably so, when you realize that proximity to empire does not make one more deserving of life. Aside from the unavoidable peril this situation creates, It's essential to realize that we Africans in the diaspora and the continent alike, we have a duty to devote ourselves to the continual fight for sovereignty, self-determination, and emancipation from the colonial system. Kwame Ture made this clear to us, reminding us that every single advancement, achievement, and gain that we African people have is due to our ancestors who shed their blood for us. And the masses do not shed their blood for the benefit of only a few. The only justification to accept upward mobility is to advance the people's cause, not our own. That's a quote from Kwame Ture. How do we accept the gains that were won only through the shedding of blood of our ancestors, with no intention of using those gains for the purpose for which they died, the true and unwavering liberation of African people? We do not justly retire from liberation struggle, especially at the most critical stage as this is now. The struggle is ongoing until freedom is won. While we articulate a desire for Africans to return to the continent, we implore our people to return for one reason and one reason only: the total liberation of African people from the predatory imperialist system that creates our turmoil. This task is not only critical, but most practical. All over the African continent are revolutionary organizations and organizers created to directly confront the colonial system. Wedding that work with our resources that the diaspora does have to offer would only prove more lethal to the colonial system. Let us not join the common and opportunist rhetoric that seeks to paint Africa as a paradise for all Africans. Our people are not drowning trying to cross the Mediterranean Sea because they have any absence of love for Africa. It's because Africa is under siege, and the poverty overtaking our people is nothing short of violent and grotesque exploitation, in some instances akin to death. We collectively have resources, means, platforms, connections, and experiences which could prove vital to the redirection of our brothers and sisters seeking to escape by steering their frustrations away from the problem of corruption and misappropriation of resources, which seem unsolvable, towards the colonial system responsible for that havoc that they experience. This means channeling the colonized frustrations and energy towards the fight for land, freedom, and sovereignty. Saying these things, we proclaim: we African people dispersed throughout the diaspora make a conscientious decision that the country where we live is not poised for the granting of freedom and liberation for African people. Deciding it is in our best interest to repatriate and join once again with our African brothers and sisters, we make this proclamation that we do not repatriate as a passive act of retreat from the white supremacist structure in the West, but instead take the path of repatriation as a political, calculated, and ultimately as a revolutionary extension of our fight for African liberation. Having taken this stance, we commit to the following. We will continue to struggle. Number one, we will continue to struggle against white supremacy and its bastard children, imperialism, colonialism, neocolonialism, until Africa is free. Number two, we will do everything within our power to see continental unity. Number three, we will join or create revolutionary organizations meant to bring about African liberation. Number four, we will do everything in our power to create communal business models that challenge the current capitalist privatized control of our land and our resources. Number five, we will not join Africa's bourgeoisie society, but we will seek to eradicate the class system in favor of an economic structure where the masses of Africans benefit from the means of production. Number six, we will call for the expropriation of all natural or mineral resources to the benefit of the African masses. Number seven, we will spread consciousness and awareness of the current situation in Africa and the role of the West in Africa's demise. Number eight, we will only tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the African struggle for liberation from globalized Western capitalism. Number nine, we will not further the colonial situation in returning to Africa, nor seek privileges from the colonial structure. And number 10, we will only use our privileges as citizens in Western countries for African liberation, not as a means of simply coming and going, but as a means of African unity, organization, and amplification of the African struggle on the continent and abroad. With that, we will have a political program, and we could talk about that a little bit more. But first, Brother Jamal or Frank, any thoughts to add on to our platform and program?
Yeah, Jimmy, you want to go first?
It's very deep. You know,
Yeah.
they're very deep. It's very profound. It's something that everybody should study. You know, Africa still has a long ways to go. You know, 'cause one of the biggest weapons our oppressors, the colonizers, the Europeans done to us, and one thing I have learned that since I've been here is psychological warfare. Because you know they didn't just get us with the tanks and the guns and the bombs, and they didn't even just come to Africa and just start killing people. They came over as a friend, quote unquote, friend. Happy. They wanted to learn the structure, the medicine, the stuff like that. So we was too nice, and it is amazing to me, some of the perception that the natives here have of the Muzungus. And those who are not familiar with the language of Swahili, Muzungu mean white. That's what they call them here in Kenya. And, first and foremost, I don't want to get into the topic of religion too much because I respect religion. But if you go to worship Jesus, please have Jesus look like you, period. Because the white Jesus thing is very real here in Kenya. You can find them on boaters. Boaters are like motorbikes. You can find them on billboards. You can find them almost everywhere here. It just amazes me, how far behind the image of Jesus is here in Kenya. And if you question that here in Kenya, they make it seem like it's no big deal. What it really is, it's a huge deal, because what you see is what you think about yourself. So psychological warfare is real. You know what I'm saying? And so we just have to have more confidence amongst ourselves because, as the statement pointed out, why are people getting on boats and risking their lives just to go to a European country? It just makes me sick. You know what I mean? So Africa is still the greatest continent on the planet in my eyes. I have no regrets of being here. It has been wonderful to me. And I also want to point out, we like to talk about the negative. A lot of time, there's a lot of revolutionaries here in Africa. So don't get bamboozled or think that everybody here are just backwards or just worship white people. They just are not. The revolutionaries are just like, hey, give it a platforms here. I have met a lot of wise African brothers and sisters who talk down about the system. So they cannot be overshadowed by those who might be confused.
And that's an important thing to talk about because, we do, there are privileges. I'm saying privilege is a quote because I don't believe there's any privilege that African people can truly have from the white system, but there are access to things that us in the diaspora do have that could be utilized for a liberation. And as Jamal said, people are not asleep. I think we all think that they're just going along with the agenda and, they don't know what to do. People are very woke. But when you talk about how the system can silence them, that's something that is a real problem. But consider the fact that if we connect with our brothers and sisters to amplify their struggle here, to help them get their word out about things here, and those of us who go home, use whatever resources you have to try to help, the organizers on the ground. It will only, like it says inside of the statement, it will only be more lethal to the colonial situation. But just thinking that we're all asleep, that's not true. Good, Frank.
Yeah, first of all, once again, let me just congratulate this organization. And that is what this organization it is, and it is going to be again and again one of the most powerful Black nationalist organization in the world. And it's never going to fail. It's never going to go down. Although we know the forces, we see it, but they're going to realize that the generation that is behind this organization, it is not a generation that you tamper with. Now, with the manifesto you just read, it says it all. And number one, Africa is the richest continent in the world. You cannot dispute that, and it is going to be even again the most richest and richest. What I mean is that if the African in the diaspora, that's all we need right now. The African in the diaspora can really realize and understand their knowledge and what they have that they can take to their mother continent. It will be done with the rest of the world. It will be done with America, Europe, France, and what have you. That's the only thing we need right now. We need the human capacity. The resources is there. What Africa needs right now is the human capacity. And within that human capacity as well, with the knowledge and experts we have, also be a revolutionary leader. And goes to Africa. That's what Africa actually needs right now. And if that is created on the African continent, you won't see anybody running through the Mediterranean Sea. You won't see African running through the Mediterranean Sea, coming to Europe or coming to America or passing through Panama, Canada to get into Europe and what have you. So basically what they're doing that for is that there is something Africa have failed to provide them. And that is why they are running away to come to a nation or a continent that they feel that continent can provide it for them. And that is why they are drowning and dying on the Mediterranean Sea. So it is unto us, and Akon says something. The Chinese, did it 25 years ago. And what the Chinese did was, it's not like they just sat down in China, they say, okay, this and that they start building whatsoever and thing. They came into the diaspora where we are today. They was there, or they are there. And after they acquire their knowledge and whatsoever, they go right back. And when they go there, society embrace them. Society welcome them. Because society know that these people are bringing something valuable to China. So society welcomed them, and that's how they started building China. And equally so, those that was on the continent refused the idea of imperialism. They knew that capitalism was not a system to develop China, but they knew that, again, their system that they believe in, and which of course capitalism do not believe in, and which of course when you ask capitalists, any capitalist nation today, they will never support the system that China have. But the Chinese believe that it is that system that have brought them that have brought them today to where they see themselves today. So it is in our same way, we as African, we know that from time to time, capitalism have never built anything tangible, have never built the human capacity of the masses of African people. Why should we still continue to deal with such system? And Jamel mentioned very powerful issue. You see, picture is a very powerful thing that can change your whole perspective. Because before the writing, the picture is the one first, and the writing is the one behind the picture. So once you see that picture, what you perceive from that picture, even as you read, what you have perceived from that picture, that's why you'll be imagining within what you read. You will not actually get the concept of what you read. And that is the white Jesus mentality. So like he said, you go all over, you see billboard and those billboard that you see in the picture, that it is not a writing. They're going to tell you, okay, this picture is this here, but this is what actually this writing or this picture is about. So once you see that picture, you know that, okay, Jesus is white and the Messiah is white. So if I'm being treated badly by the Messiah, by people that look at the Messiah, I'm not going to go against them because I may not go to heaven. You see, and he said, if you are a worshiper of Christ, Christ have to look like you. You have to create a picture that look like you. So again, the manifesto of this organization that we just read, it is great, and we should go by it, and we should teach, our brothers and sisters who have the will or who want to go back on the African continent to invest, as Akon is inviting them to go on the African continent, which of course he's doing his part. He's not a revolutionary, but it is unto all again to also educate him on the measures, that he's carrying out there on what to do as well. And we as revolutionary, we should also go, to educate people in what we are doing as well.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I mean, so essentially where we go from here, WCC will be launching the Revolutionary Repatriation Program. We'll be leading weekly groups for people. If you are someone who has identified, again, it is your choice. We understand that our position is that if you're going to stay in America and fight for some type of rights, your best bet is to fight for control of your communities, as Malcolm has advocated for our people. But if you are one of those people who takes the position in agreement with us that that's not where our future lies or the future of my family, and that you do want to return to the continent, for you, we do have a program. We're going to be making sure that we work hard to not just identify and help people repatriate, because there is a lot of different mechanics that do go into repatriation. You do have to plan very well. You do have to talk to people who've done it before. You have to visit Africa and all stuff like that. But more specifically, making sure that you're going back to further the fight against colonialism. So some of the areas that our program will cover, things like political education, organizational referrals and connections. We will work to get you connected to organizations that are revolutionary organizations that are on the continent that are already working, or connect with people who we can find or who we know or who we're already connected to that are doing that work. In addition, we'll teach about cooperative business modeling. If you don't know what a cooperative is, I'm sure you all do, but in case you don't, it's essentially creating a business model where it's not the prototypical capitalist business model. You have an owner and everyone says workers. Instead, why not create a farm where all the workers are working together, but all working for the collective well-being of each other? Why not create a real estate business like that? Why not create businesses that have a cooperative way to reach as many people and uplift your brothers and sisters while we are working to actively take control of our resources that are in the hands of foreigners? We should be encouraging these things, because it brings the question, if a cooperative will work as a farm, it should absolutely, there should be no reason why we should have some individual from Germany or from UK coming in and owning our gold or owning our diamonds. And if you're going to work the mines, you should own no mines. And also we'll have just some basic skills training. So just to read briefly, it says the program will assist Africans in the diaspora planning to repatriate and crafting out plans of action as far as steps needed to take a successful transition, including financial planning, coming into line with African culture, because there is an adjustment, for those of us who've been away. And that includes, person-in-person dynamics, assistance with languages, history of the countries. You should know the history of the country you're going to. Don't just go and just, I'll start new. There's a deep history inside of these countries that you should be aware of. Understanding how to create cooperative business models, learning about the political situation of those countries, understand what's going on. Who are the Western imperialists who are behind the scenes and involved inside of the country you repatriate to? How do you repatriate to Rwanda and not know about what Kagame is doing inside of the Congo? That's a big question. And then connecting African diasporas, like I said, with organizations and organizers. That's going to be, I think, a very important part. So that will be our new program. Anyone who wants to join, I'll put it in the chat, or our application to join WCC, and you would just check that you want to be a part of the repatriation program, which Frank, as the political actions chair, will be taking the lead on. But guys, do you have anything else to add? We have 1 minute.
I'll just make it quick, but we are looking for writers with WCC. So if you want to write for us, we just require you to write one article a week. That could definitely help us, get our public relations team better, and continue to follow the going back to Africa platform that we currently have.
Anything final, Frank?
The only thing I got to say is that we are an organization. So come and join us and the good fight.
Okay, with that, thanks everyone for joining. You will hear more from us on this, and see you guys in the next broadcast.